What's up, gentlemen? Figured I should weigh in as the commissioner of the league on the post that started a few hours ago from Eric. Kind of figured something like this would start to come up. Finally have a weekend where I'm in town, not at Michigan State watching Michigan get smashed, or not in Chicago watching the Bears get smashed this weekend, or anything crazy. So we do a little bit of fantasy football work, kind of looking at the league as a whole. It looks like Eric kind of already started, so that's a good thing. Also enjoyed his his listing of his teams and why. That's something him and I have done actually for quite a few years. I have my list on a napkin that I did at a restaurant. I just have to formulate it into the reasons why, etc. So I'll be adding my list as well. Kind of fun to hear what everybody has to think, what they have to say about their individual teams. Feel free to post yours. Kind of a neat concept. So the whole concept of these long-term free agents and basically the loophole / problem that Eric started, I pretty much on purpose, and I'm not going to say whether there was or wasn't conversations with Eric and Andy, because I don't know about what was going on and how they basically got each other's players for cheaper and everything else. As I kind of started off, when Eric was considering doing this, we all knew it would cause some sort of problem. Couple ways this could have been taken care of. One, we could have had a long-term free agent period that started basically on week 9 or week 10, saying you can't sign anybody to long-term free agents after that time period. Ended up being week 12, and I'm one of the people that voted week 12 because, in all honesty, I want to give everybody in this league as long a chance as possible to try to stay in the playoff hunt. I don't want them to feel like they need to drop players or whatever else previous to it, or have to worry about. And have to worry about the people picking up people, for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, etc., all the way up through week 12, because you know what, it just is what it is for that. So nonetheless, that's one thing that could be changed. Two, at the very beginning of this league, we talked about having holdouts. I don't think there's going to be a clear definition of what a holdout is. I mean, there's been enough problems and issues and whatnot over the lottery draft that I know multiple members of this league, Eric included, I think Andy was one that complained about it, and a few other people that didn't like it, but they were afraid of the whole tanking concept. Now, whether or not Derek N is tanking, I don't know. In my mind, he's completely playing for next year, and all I have to say is thank you for your $50 donation this year. Plain and simple. I don't care at that point. But he has, in turn, he traded for, Julio Jones, who was on IR. Absolutely fine, because Julio Jones is going to help him out a ton next year and in future years, because he is building for the future. I don't consider that tanking, and at the very least, we enjoyed his donation this year, and we will continue to join him, to basically enjoy his donation yearly based on how I see he operates his team. The other side of things, it looks like make it so the players that are dropped can't be signed to long-term contracts unless they sit on waivers for 2 weeks, blah, blah, blah. Again, I guess that's an option that we could go ahead and do things. Furthermore, I don't believe we really have this issue after this year. Basically, there are a couple members of the league, Eric, Andy, a couple maybe other people who haven't really done much with it yet but could, who realized they messed up in the draft. They realized they screwed themselves, and as a result, they signed some of these players for 1 year, and they were all going to go into free agency next year, no big deal. Again, I don't know if there was collusion or not, but all of a sudden, Eric throws out, he's going to drop player X or whatever. To be honest, if nobody else dropped another player, Eric's just screwed, and it really hurt himself long term. The fact was, Andy in turn went ahead and dropped Randall Cobb so he could get player X. As a result of that, it did start that domino effect that Eric wanted to happen, plain and simple. And what it could have came down to is Eric drops that player, whoever happened to have the most cap room, which I believe was Dustin maybe at that point, would have gotten, I think it was Doug Martin, I say player X, but I think it was Doug Martin, for, you know, probably his whole cap or $1 above whatever second place at, and that is what it was. And Eric screwed himself out of that for no apparent reason. But when everybody else started compounding onto that, that's what created this issue. If you look at the future contracts in future years, a lot of bigger name players are signed to multi-year contracts. And even next year, hypothetically, there are actually going to be some great values next year because not a lot of people have cap room. I will almost guarantee that those players are going to be signed for 2, 3, 4, 5 years, no matter what. Otherwise, it would be stupid, you know, because then a lot more people have salary cap room in year 3. So I guess my point, what I'm trying to get around to, is that this was the only year that this could have had an issue or had a problem, and I don't feel like that I need to quote-unquote punish the people, aka Eric, who found the loophole and may or may not have collaborated with Andy on what exactly was going on. As a result, they both benefited, you know, and it sucks. You know, it sucks for everybody, and it caused this big issue. Because otherwise, as Andy, of all people, actually mentioned weeks ago, why would you do this, Eric? Because you're going to mess up what happens to be a really good and fun league. Well, did it, and look what happened, you know, as a result. But on top of that, again, if nobody else did anything drastic like what Andy did, this isn't an issue. So, I mean, we can fulfill an amendment in, we can talk about an amendment, we can do whatever we want to on that end. It's not going to be a future problem. People are going to be upset either way. I'm in for rules being changed and whatnot as things progress, and you know, we have slightly changed some rules already, which is absolutely fine. Hold on, let me read what Scott just said. Yep, and Scott even mentions what I just said. I just think the midseason dropped and signed to long-term deals is not great and has extremely high potential for collusion, which I know myself, and I know probably 85% of the people in this league are wondering if there was collusion with Eric and Andy on this. So, I guess I don't have a direct answer for you other than A, it's not going to be an issue for the future based on contracts and based on who's going to sign who in free agency next year because of what happened. B, I am open to looking at long-term contracts being a max of 2 to 3 years for mid-season drops or whatnot. 3, I don't want to get into a holdouts thing. There's too much fluctuation of what this definition could be or not be, and there won't be a clear definition. It's just going to cause another problem on top of that. As I said at the beginning of the year when we talked about it, you know, people do outperform their contracts all the time, and yes, that is something that in the NFL people do hold out. However, they hold out based on their own definition of how good they are, to be honest with you. Unless we're in baseball and they go to arbitration because they have outperformed their certain deal based on a collection of X amount of players, which they have their lawyers or sports agents or whoever take care of that, then that's when something generally happens. Otherwise, in the NFL, it's, all right, Andy used the example, AJ Green in D1, sorry to bring that up, has outperformed his $19 a year contract. No matter what, he's outperformed it. I can go ahead and say in this league, Russell Wilson has probably outperformed his $20 a year contract for me. And Keenan Allen has outperformed his $1 a year contract for Jared already. So, on top of that, how many of these are we going to keep adding on to it? You know, literally, I could go through and choose this person's outperformed, this person's outperformed, this person's outperformed, etc. It could be 80% of the league. Now, on the other side of things, if people underperform their contract, does that mean we should cut their salaries? Again, that happens in the NFL. People change literally their salary cap figure all the time, number one, to get better team or a better overall group of people around them. And number two, because the owners will go to them and say, you're either cutting your salary or you're going to be cut. Plain and simple. Earl Bennett this year, Chicago Bears, was making $3 million. He cut his deal down to $1 million to stay on the team because he was underperforming in the contract. So, again, I don't like the holdout concept. I don't like the changing of the contract number afterwards. So I think, in my mind, unless there's an overwhelming vote that we change that, that doesn't change. So feel free to post your thoughts on this video afterwards. I kind of reiterated a few thoughts 3 or 4 different times on purpose, just so people fully understand and cut the concept of it. Have any thoughts? Let me know. Thanks.